Excuse me, sir.
No. It better
Got him to do it. Oh, I got a picture.
Oh, yeah. Man, I hope he's gonna be. I don't see it. Justin, but, I mean.
Hey, Russell, she wants to know who's the mayor.
The mayor's George Washington.
See, I gave you an opportunity to be a superstar this morning, and I could have done that. Just, I did it because I love you. Why?
Just couldn't do it. Too nervous to go on the outside. Don't worry, I
Tried that, like,
When you just think about that house, you say, remember, this is a deposit house.
well, actually, to be the voice of the mayor. Then on out.
Yeah, but you, what were you working for? You voiced the mayor.
So I voiced the mayor. Lloyd the mayor, you're looking at the voice.
And when I was there, Hunting Club shot up there. And one of my teachers, George, was in the Hunting
I
Club.
swear a lot different. When was this? Was this
I
before
was
the
there
Constitution was signed or after?
I was there 81 to 88, so it was 81 or 2. So the guy asked, we said, one of my teachers, George Bayer, shop teacher, everybody knows he was influenced, but I said, you'll be a good old bear, I love you one now. So they gave the bear, he had it mounted, it was on roll. That's a real bear. It was a real bear, we used to
Well,
roll.
I'm going to tell you, Lloyd now is not real. In Atlas, he does love to come and change his clothes. So today, he was dressed like George Washington. And then during the reading of the Constitution, she had me wear the hat.
You know, Russell, did you know that I went to middle school with her? She was one of my friends. His sister.
Yeah,
No.
funny. It's a small world.
It is, though.
I got her out of the hospital. Passed her.
Oh, okay. She didn't go.
I got two of my sisters all out of the hospital.
She went home.
Got her out of the hospital, got cheated.
So the total of them are students.
And I got checked on it. I did a murder conversation. I did 83 days. What's the legal what she does? And I just think we change the policy. And then what we haven't thought about.
Oh, we did. I was like, we did. Yeah, so it was JC, was it 2034? Yeah, at first it was, West Brunswick. Yeah. Oh, really? Volleyball? Or no, yes. Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Is this their first home game? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. No, I'm assuming, I don't know, I thought it was just regular season. Do your daughter, does she play any, does your daughter play sports? Okay.
Just remember to pull it back when you're ready, but we can still hear you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a pattern. cheers.
Make a cheer. Sometimes.
And track.
Like, come on in, ask them.
And track.
How much was here?
This is,
Oh, my energy book. Someone took it out. I know they didn't.
They're not mine.
They're not mine. No, these are have corrections in them.
What they went through, the largest was 1075.
Crystal, will you guys let me know when Colin joins? Yeah, Colin doesn't think it's a good idea. Why? But because but if you want to, and that's part of your speech, then, huh? Yeah.
To it.
It's up to you, Nelson. You're the board member.
She's talented, man.
Pete, you have 1 minute.
Sir, you don't walk in front of people. One is, this one is ours, tradition. Right, and this is the, excuse me.
That's what I'm gonna get. Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to the special meeting of the Board of Education to order. Ms. Bowie, will you please call the roll?
Good afternoon. Stephanie Craybill,
Here.
Stephanie Walker,
Here.
Stephanie Adams, Nelson Bullier,
Here.
Judy Justice,
Here.
Hugh McManus, and Pete Wildebohr.
Present.
Okay, moving forward with business, do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved. The only item on our agenda today, first of all, welcome to those of you who are in the audience to watch, and those of you who are in our viewing audience. We are here today to discuss the 22-23 school calendar. There are no official presentations from the Board of Education, from the district, because there is no new information to present. So this meeting is ours to run. So I just think I'm going to go ahead and just jump right in. What I would like to do is start with Ms. Justice and move down the line. and then everybody will have time to just make a few statements. And we will do that. We will proceed in that manner. Let me pause for 1 second. Is Mr. Shai, has he joined us? Okay. And we're recording? Okay. And we will proceed in that manner going down so that everybody has a chance to be heard, and that we will make sure that everybody has a chance to be heard before the next person goes back in, and the same way each time, so that everybody gets, equal time to talk and present their positions. So, Ms. Justice, go ahead.
Okay, well, there's an awful lot of information to be presented, and I do want to listen to the other board members also. In front of us when we walked in, somebody had presented 3 versions of calendars with the school ending, I believe, December 20, this first semester ending December 21st, 22nd. There's a couple different 2 days.
Ms. Justice, can I halt you for a minute? Could you tell us what you're talking about, because we have a whole pile.
This pile separate from the pile that you passed out.
Okay, and so, and where did this pile come from?
That came from me. I put a copy in front of everybody up here, and there's extras on the end if anyone wants to look at it.
Okay, so this was just given to us today?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Well, from what I'm understanding, there was an awful lot of people that are very concerned about what's going on as far as the current calendar and how it does not help the children succeed, in their opinion, to do the best that they possibly can throughout the school year. The goal is to end before January, before we come back in the second semester, and have the exams take place. And there's concerns not just with the regular population of students, and I'll just use from my experience, if the students were to come back after January the 1st, then there's going to be a whole session because their brains, some students are going to be studying over the holiday if we come back after January the 1st. They'll be, in essence, ruining their holiday. On top of the fact, when they come back, some of them will actually be scheduled ahead of time to be attending, there's the regular population, and those are attending Cape Fear Community College, who will be taking, when we do get to exams, if we come back, we don't start until after the first semester, don't end after the first semester, they'll be taking exams here in our school system, and also be taking classes at Cape Fear. It's going to be really hard on that group. But let's get back to the regular students for a second. If those that do not study over the holidays, what they're going to do, and the teachers are going to do this because I'm having been a teacher in this position, what you're going to do, you're going to spend a week to 2 weeks reviewing before you take the actual exams. So for those of you that keep saying, oh, you're getting extra days because the second version will have more days, a lot of those days are going to be going into review, needed review, in order for the kids to score properly, because this is how their grades and their admissions to whatever higher programs they're going to be going on to are dependent on. So by having the current calendar the way it is, it's going to be a real hardship for those 2 groups, Cape Fear Community, regular students. We're talking about high school students now. Let me explain something. I think it's about 7,900 students. 1/3 of our students are in high school in this county. That's a huge chunk. When we change this calendar, if we change it, it's not going to affect the elementary, and it's not going to affect the middle school. There are year-long courses. You don't have to worry about days there. The biggest complaint I've heard is about, the one I'm the most concerned about, are 2 things: pacing guides and teachers' designated work days. Oh, and the 3rd thing, holidays. First of all, I have looked at this calendar because it's been passed around a lot behind the scenes. This doesn't interfere with any of that. The holiday days stay the same for those of you that are concerned about making reservations in a state park, scheduling events with your family. So these calendars, none of these 3 affects that. The teachers' work days, it doesn't affect that. There's still teachers' work days, adequate teachers' work days on here. Also, there's talk about the letters training. I learned more about the letters training than I had before, and I'm glad. This has been a good opportunity. Boy, the teachers have a lot on their plate. But there's options for that also. Those teachers' work day, you can be the letters training. You can also have half days, and I'll let other people speak more to that. Also, we were promised subs. I rewatched the meeting the other night. You were concerned about setting the subs up. Well, you know what? That can be changed. That states, the group that's offering the letters training is supposed to be paying for it, and that, you're not going to be paying for subs anyway if teachers are in designated workdays or undesignated workdays taking this training. So that doesn't make any sense to use that as an excuse. So there are 6 other people on here. I can keep on going, but what my main concern, I said it the other night and I see it now, it's what's best for the students. If you're not going to affect the families, if you're not going to affect the workdays, and here was a big, I mentioned it a minute ago, the extra hours you get in the second part of the semester, of the year. Those, I guess, anywhere from, let's just out of the air, 15 to 30 days maybe. Well, I just said 15 of them you're going to be doing with review. I can tell you that right now. And teachers are amazing. We are amazing. So many things are being demanded of them now that I have questions about. This would be the least of some of the demands for them to adjust their schedules. One of the things I used to love about having some extra days at the end of the year was because you could do enrichment and things that you normally could not do, that you did during the first semester. But you get the basics in, the meat of it in. That's what teachers have been trained and teachers can be doing, especially with teachers collaborating and working together. So I said, there's 6 other people, they want to talk, but so far, I have not seen anything that makes me believe that it's necessary for us to go end our semester in January the 20th, when it's so detrimental to 1/3 of our population in any way, shape, or form you look at it. Okay, your turn, I guess.
Mr. McManus?
This has been a real difficult thing for me because, as most of you know, being a high school principal, I feel like I have a background of trying to understand, based on what has happened in the last 3 or 4 years, it's necessary to think about our students. So students first, I think all of us on the board, regardless of how we vote, I do believe we're all student-oriented. I think this is the first time in a minimum of 2 years, probably 2.5, that our students are beginning to get back to, normal may not be the right word, but get back into the flow of the school. Their socialization, their friendships, the educational arena, expectations, and the teachers. And I have now visited close to 30 schools. And it's amazing, the atmosphere in every single one of them is phenomenal. The teachers are smiling, the kids are excited. I haven't seen that for, well, I've only been on board a little over a year, so it's exciting to see it. But I think these students are in a groove. I hate the thought, and we usually say they're a year behind. Quite frankly, we have students that are 2 and 3 years behind. And our test scores reflect. I hate to see the kids in this groove go home for 2 weeks, go back. I understand there will be time to review. My concern is, can they pass the state test? Can they do what is necessary? Because of 2 years of pandemic, and as I've said before, virtual is an absolute, the worst thing we ever did for most students. So that part worries me. And then take exams. AP students, the semester ends January the 23rd. So let's, for discussional purposes, they have 1 week of AP classes beginning the second semester. And then they have 3 months, and then they start taking them on the 1st of May. That's the way it's been working for many, 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 many years. Some students may take 1 or 2 APs, been through the 2nd of May, if they're lucky. What are we going to do with those students for the rest of the month? 20, 22, 25 days, depending on where your exams fall. Which is a question I want to ask later, but is the attendance of those students, does that have anything to do with the monies that are now tied by the legislature to our overall full schedule? Because if not, those kids who finish AP should be allowed to stay home. That's my personal and professional opinion. They're treated like college students, they're taking college classes. But my question is, they have 3 months and a week. That's tough for an AP exam. It will make the difference in acceptances from some kids into college. A lot of you may know, you may not know, but not as many as before because of the financial situation, but most colleges accept a 4 or 5. Some still accept a 3 on the AP. They give you credit. Some kids will go to school as a second semester sophomore. I mean, some have gone as beginning second semester sophomore. Many go beginning as a sophomore or a second semester freshman. AP classes save money. They also save time. And certainly, last but not least, dual enrollment. I'm confused on the dual enrollment. I've heard so many different things. I've talked to some people about that. But in my experience with dual enrollment, those kids are taking upon themselves to reach for a higher exposure to those classes, and they can also get credit for most of them. I think we have 1,250, am I right? 1,300 closely in that curriculum. Those kids, it seems to me, have an overlap of a couple of 3 weeks where it's going to be a very difficult time for them. They'll be treated totally different. We still having any students graduate first semester like we used to?
I'd have to.
Go ahead,
Okay,
Matt.
okay. Because if we do, then the lateness of the end of first semester is going to make it tough for those kids to enroll in the spring, if they so choose, which some also elect to do that. It's just, and at the last, which I attended, at the most recent first, if I remember, yeah, it is the first, calendar committee that just met, of a brand new calendar committee. I don't think anybody, except for maybe Dr. Faison and some others, were on the original. The top two priorities were the semesters are equal as much as possible. You can't make it, I don't believe it, perfect, but that was number one. Number two was exams to be completed by the end of first semester. Now that's the 23-24 calendar committee. And so to me, to reflect on that and how people feel and reflect back on this, it's just been really difficult for me, because I think we're taking the kids who they don't need a break, not before testing. And the AP kids are kind of getting the ones that are getting hit the hardest. So that's my 10 cents worth. So I want to listen to hear everybody else.
Thank you, Mr. McManus. Ms. Walker?
Thank you. I think they've covered a whole lot of what the concerns were. Let's not forget, well, you brought up the calendar committee. I went back and looked at notes from calendar committee last year and also notated that the third meeting out of 4, the committee decided to end the semester by December. I don't know what changed between the 2 meetings, the last meeting, but I know that that was a concern even last year to keep it the same because it was working. And there the reasons were what everyone here so far has even discussed was that it was student-oriented with students in mind. And let's not forget, COVID has been happening, we can't forget that, but the mental health aspect of it is important here, and I think we don't talk enough about it. And having that Christmas break, it was important to a lot of people. And including the conflicts that you're getting with the dual enrolled kids and then the AP. I talked to my own daughter who graduated in 2017. She saw a huge issue with the fact that these AP classes were on this current calendar were sorted the way they were. It puts kids students at a disadvantage. And I know we want our students to do the best. I really want answers. I mean, I brought a calendar that would work. I think if we could find the draft 5 or 6 from last year's calendar committee meetings, we would see also calendars that work the way we are asking about, which is finished by Christmas. So I know it can be done. We have an example here of it that can be done that meets the requirements of the hours and the teacher work days. And if there are tweaks that need to be made, we can certainly do it. We definitely have the power to do it as a board. And I think that if we're keeping students in the forefront of what we do, then that's the important thing that we do make decisions for or based on. I know there's other things, but we can get into the details if we need to. You guys have done a good job setting up all the issues that are with this current calendar, and I really hope that we can make a decision and make a change. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. Okay, so I went back and watched the last calendar, the last board meeting on December the 7th, 2021, where the agenda stated that the academic calendar should be approved for scheduling, planning, and professional development purposes. So I want to make sure that we talk about, that I talk about all 3 of those things. I do, for those of you who did not go back and listen to that, I just wanted to let you know that if you go to that on YouTube at approximately 4 hours and 44 minutes in, which would make it about 9:45, to 10:55 to 9:55, that's when we had our discussion. Questions were asked about the before holiday break, which students definitely like better. Scheduling difficulties with Cape Fear Community College. Nelson had agreed to serve as a liaison to help with scheduling issues should they occur, but not to handle those because that's not your job. Mr. McManus had offered that it's the principal's job to do creative scheduling, and he was really good at it. So, and I'm sure there are many, many other principals who are very good at doing that creative scheduling. And then we asked about the extra minutes each day so that we could bank hours in the event of an emergency. It looked to me at that point in time when I made my vote, and I'm still staying with it, we brought forth calendars that were in the best interest of all of our students, all 25,000 plus students, and to correct the significant imbalance of instruction between first and second semesters, and to embed more teacher work days throughout the year. Those kind of things came up in our climate survey among teachers. They needed those work days. So with this calendar that we have, right, with the 22-23, 86 days in the fall, 87 days in the spring, 185, or we had more than 1,025 hours of instruction. We had added extra minutes to the day so that we could do that, and then we had to be cognizant of the contracted hours of our teachers, because we have some 10-month employees and et cetera. So the stakeholders, I would like to, remind everybody that all the stakeholders had 9 months to ask about calendar and to ask for revisions. I reviewed all the call to the audience topics from July 2021 to present, and there were 0 comments about the calendar on any of those call to the audience. We have only started to receive comments about the calendar in August when school is starting. And I am really just disappointed with staff and students and parents who say this is just now coming to my attention, because it is not just coming to your attention. We talked about it in December of 2021 as a board, and those are televised. So when I hear us talking about having a week to 2 of review time for our tests, that applies to first and second semester. So that's taking away, 5 to 7 days of instruction time. So those kind of things have to be applied equally for first and second semesters. So that was that. Miss Justice was right when she said that, over 1/3 of our students, using today's numbers, that from Power School, 35% of our students are high school students. So that is, that's a significant portion. If you look at students enrolled in AP classes, that we have the 2,874, that's 32% of all of our high school students, but that is only 11% of the 25,000 students that we have. So there falls in one of our dilemmas, that we have 25,000 students that we have to do what's best for. So elementary and middle school students take their EOGs at the end of the school year, so we don't really have to do testing, as a weighting thing for that. We had, just to remind everybody, we had 2 years of a calendar, a waiver for our calendar for the number of exposure hours that our students had. And for the students right now and parents right now who are 11th and 12th graders, this is their first time to hear that we don't end before Christmas. But that was an anomaly, because if you go back and you look at all the other calendars, we have been getting out after Christmas, for a very long time. And we've been having this discussion since 2004 when the calendar legislation came into play, where we couldn't start school in August, at August 11th. We had to start on the Monday closest to August the 26th. So just looking at in the fall semester too, if we take away any more days, we have the ACT and the PSAT that high school students are losing days for. Dual enrollment, I did want to speak to that, especially with Mr. McManus brought up about our students that have been able to meet all of their graduation requirements and get all their credits by the fall of their senior year, that Cape Fear Community College has mini sessions that begin in February and March, so that these students don't have to wait to attend college. They can take those mini sessions. All they need is a transcript that shows, and they would have that in plenty of time. And also, too, those students, if they're graduating early, they could stay in New Hanover County Schools and take more Cape Fear Community College classes on their resume for free, for that. So my thoughts on AP classes is that I'm for that. There are students that are able to rise to that challenge and do that. They need equal instruction time, whether they take it in first semester or whether they take it in second semester. All students take the AP exam at the same time. So actually, the kids who take the class in the fall might be even a little more disadvantaged than the kids who were taking it in the spring, because they have to wait 6 months to start the review process. And that review process doesn't take place during the instruction time of the AP spring students. That's done at the pleasure of the AP teacher. And it may be after school, it may be during planning time, it may be on Saturdays. So all students are still getting that. And again, and I'm a big proponent of that all students have to have good, meaningful work post-exam. So it is incumbent upon the teacher, like Ms. Justice brought up, is that we do enrichment work. And the class is not over just because you take the AP exam. The teacher has developed a curriculum plan and a pacing guide where they can talk through and do, and many of those teachers even have an end of the course exam. It's not a state exam, but they can't wait to get AP test results to give you a grade in the class. So there is work going on, and if there's not, then that would be something that would be addressed at the school level by the principals. So professional development, when we talked about the planning and scheduling, when we make a calendar, folks go into planning mode, 101 immediately. So we've got a lot of already scheduled and paid for professional development, the biggest one being the letters training. Approximately 800 people will be attending that, teachers and instructional coaches at the elementary level. So we said this calendar doesn't affect the elementary level. Well, it's affecting every single elementary school teacher that has to do letters training. We were in cohort 1, so we got first dibs at the training opportunities. And we're now in cohort 3, so we got the primo spots, which means all the days that we'd already put into our calendar for professional development, where we don't have to get subs because teachers aren't in there. But if we were to change our calendar right now, we are not guaranteed that we're even going to get the training on any day, and then we are responsible then for paying for those subs. We also have middle school training on Zern Math, and we have high school training on Envision for Math 1 that has to occur. Our Math 1 scores were terrible, and not to have, actually, let me just rephrase, have many opportunities for improvement, in instructing our math teachers. So that is important. That's already been scheduled with trainers and time away. So those are the kind of things. CTE teachers have planned all of their professional development on teacher work days. So those are the kinds of things that no one thinks about, like, let's just switch over. We've got a lot of planning and a lot of money, and I don't even know what the amount is, but I'm guessing it has to be at least in the tens of thousands of dollars, and that question we may ask later. We've got embedded work days that our teachers asked for in the climate survey. We've got, teachers have already developed their instruction right now for this semester based on their pacing guides. And most of us use the backward mapping approach. You see, this is the end, and this is what I got to do each way to get there. Use the analogy of driving. You're driving across country, and you know that you've got to make at least this amount of time per day to get to where you're going. And now all of a sudden you said, you know what? I think the people at the other end changed the date, and now you can't get there. So I think we need to think about those kinds of things. Childcare considerations. People have already lined up with their childcare. a lot of our staff has second jobs, and those kind of things are looked at in the calendar. Of course, there are vacations, and I think it would be disrespectful for us to dismiss that as one thing, because our parents and our teachers who are also people and plan vacations and time off. So those are some of my thoughts on there, but I also too, just so everybody knows, we did get some statistics, and I wanted to read those out loud for folks, that the number of students enrolled in AP classes, the New Hanover High School has 281, the Ashley High School has 551, Laney High School has 615, and Hoggard has 1,427. And I don't know about the rest, but I've only received like 3 emails from the Hoggard students, and they are more than half of our AP students. Then we also got some other information about our enrollment in there and the students taking college classes. So we have 17 students at Mosley, 357 students at Laney, 230 students at Ashley, 374 students at Hoggard, 138 at Hanover, 114 at CTEC, 148 at WEX, and 96 students at Isaac Bear. Now, a lot of those students at CTEC, WEX, and Isaac Bear, they don't take AP classes because they have an immediate access to taking college courses as part of their curriculum. So those are just some of the things that I have thought about and mulled over and asked questions about prior to coming to this meeting, because I think just switching over to a new calendar right here, right now, is certainly not best business practice. And yes, the school system is a business, and so we do have to run and be respectful of that. But the biggest thing for me is what is in the best interest of instructing our students, and that is to balance our semesters. So, Mr. Wildeboer.
Okay, thank you very much. And sometimes I'm called the quiet member. I'm not going to speak nearly as long as my colleagues, but I would like to start with, just where I started this whole process is thinking about what is best for educating our students. I would like to take a moment to thank Ms. Bowie for getting some of this data for us. I had called yesterday, and one of the pieces of data I asked for, she provided for us that 16% of our high school students are dual enrolled, which is not a small number, but it's also not 50%. Very difficult decision, I'll be honest. It's not easy. I went to several high schools and spoke with folks. I got calls from some high school teachers. I went to some elementary schools and talked to some administrators. When I have a situation like this, what I do is I put kind of a plus delta list together. And if any of my colleagues want to correct it, but as I'm listing it out, so like I say, I'm not going to take 3 or 4 minutes to talk here, but the pre-Christmas break or holiday break, the pluses would be no loss of retention during the break, similar schedule to CFCC, and so basically at that point, and we wouldn't have any change. Excuse me, that's the pre, so that we would have change, and we'd end up, by my count, with 72 days of education or instruction in the first semester. Staying with what we have now, which is the post-break, there's no change. They would use the last 2 weeks to review. No need for teachers to redo pacing guides. One thing that has not been mentioned yet, and one of the teachers actually mentioned to me, is that in his estimation, this is a longtime teacher, not quite as old as I am, but a longtime teacher, and he said, that a lot of times as students are getting towards that Christmas break, they're done. They're burned out. They're ready to go home for a little bit and break. So you wouldn't have that if you continue the same schedule we have now. And we're looking at, by my count, which could be correct, or maybe I missed it by a day or two, 72 days in the first semester if we change the calendar, and 86 is what we have currently. So there's a lot of things I've heard from my colleagues to factor in, but like I said, I went to some of the places, knocked on the doors. One of the principals said to me, that person did not recommend a change. They said teachers are flexible. They'll do whatever you guys tell them to do. But they said at that point, I wouldn't, if I was you, if I was sitting in your chair, I wouldn't be pushing for a change because, for some of the reasons that have already been mentioned, the pacing guides, some of the other things. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Mr. Boyer, thank you, Mr. Wildebohr. Mr. Boyer.
Thank you, Mr. Wildebohr. Yeah, I'll be brief as well, because we're just gonna stick to some very basic facts. And there are these. The committee unanimously, without objection, approved the current calendar. The board unanimously, with discussion about these issues, as Ms. Crable mentioned, approved the current calendar in December. We talked about this problem. The only time since the law changed in 2004, the law that requires us to start on that Monday closest to the 26th, the only time in the history of New Hanover County Schools where our semester ended before Christmas was 1 year when we had a waiver, and then the next year when we could start on the 23rd. So it was the only time that's ever happened, and we have survived. We have absolutely survived, and we've done very well. Nothing at all has changed since we passed the calendar. That's why our administration isn't presenting. There is zero new information. So I appreciate that we're looking at all these things, but frankly, that's what we should have been doing in December. I think it causes amongst the public a sense of uncertainty, a sense, people question our leadership when we close school. We say we're going to open school, and then we get a lot of emails, and we react to the emails, and we say we're going to close school. We're going to keep it in a hybrid model, and then a week later we get more emails, and we go back and forth. We made a decision back in December. Students are taking Math 1, Math 2, Math 3, and English courses right now in our first semester. And I don't know, I think it would be fair to say that the most rigorous offerings that we have are our dual enrolled classes and our AP classes. Those are weighted at 5 GPA points compared to 4 for our regular classes, our Math 1, our Math 2s, that are not honors, and our English courses. So to me, I know we talk about equity all the time, which we're focused on equity. This seems to me like a change that would benefit our very best, highest performing students, possibly at the expense of students who are not as high performing. And I just think, when it comes to leadership, it can't always be about giving every person what they want. We have to balance the needs of 26,000 people and 3,000 staff. It's a very tough job. I know everybody cares about kids, and that's the prism that I'm making this decision through, and that's the prism I used in December, and without new information, I don't see how my decision should change.
Thank you, Mr. Boyer. Okay, so what I would like to suggest is let's go down the aisle, but if you have a question that you would like to ask of our senior staff, and then everybody's going to get a chance to come in again.
Raising your hand.
No, excuse me, this is not a public, ma'am, you're going to have to sit down and be quiet. Thank you. So just to reiterate and be clear, this is a regular special meeting. There is no call to the audience that was a part of this. We approved the agenda. It was not on there. And so, no, we can't have opinions. And several students did ask me that in an email, and several parents have asked that. And several board members have asked, are we having people come? And you are welcome to come, but this is not an opportunity for public input. So my suggestion is that if you have any questions that you want to ask of our senior staff, let's take a moment and go down the aisle and get a question out there, and then everybody will have an opportunity to give more of their feedback as we deliberate.
I would like to be able to have not just a question, but any kind of rebuttals, because I think when we started out, and then I think there's some answers to the questions that you have come up with.
Okay, that's fine. Ms. Justice, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I started off saying we've got a calendar that works. It does everything that every one of your concerns were mentioned. Holidays. The pacing guide is the only one that isn't. As you said, teachers are flexible. Pete, thank you for saying that the principal said that if he was on the board, we're on the board. Got it? We make these decisions, and we're elected by the people for that reason. I was a principal. I did not expect to run for the board, but now that I'm here, I know it's totally different. Experts, they're the experts. That's what blows my mind. Do you want us to ask, first of all, we've got a calendar that meets everything that you're concerned about. And then you want us to ask experts, and you name the senior staff, which you are, thank you very much. But they are the ones that are living the results of what our decisions are. So they're the experts even more than they are. And you said that this is a business. Well, then they're our employees, and they're going to respond as our employees. These are who we serve. These are the most important people in our lives as far as our responsibilities. These are the students, and I would like to be able to hear what they have to say from their perspective. And you know what, I think most of them are probably dual enrolled kids or the AP kids. I would actually have liked to have heard from other students also, because I live with one, and I also speak with them all the time, and they're just as concerned as they are. And they're obviously not in a position to leave their classes and say anything. And, these middle schools and the elementary schools are really not affected by this. You can shift your pacing guide. They got the whole year long. To think that that's the reason that, that you're going to have some of these kids struggle and suffer, and not some, we're talking hundreds, if not thousands. Thousands. We need to be hearing from them. So, and let me say one other thing about Mr. Boulaire's reflections on the calendar. Ms. Walker already expressed that she's gone back and looked at the calendar committee's meetings. I did, too, the minutes. And I've talked to a number of people on that calendar committee. Here's the strange thing, and we should get back to you, hopefully, in a second. Here's the strange thing. Everybody on that calendar committee until the very last meeting, and we can't get hold of the last couple copies of the ones they agreed on. They had like 6 or 7 versions. Those versions all had it ending at December the 21st or 22nd. Suddenly, the very last meeting, they come in with a totally new calendar. And I think the calendar was created from central office to follow along with the large school consortium. Not to look at our district, but to follow them because, hey, they're the biggest districts in the state. So, they're the ones we need to follow because they're probably going to be most successful. Well, we don't know how successful they're going to be. We could find out this year if we did it the way it's best for our schools and not theirs. We don't have 124,000 students. You know that? We don't live in the mountains. This is New Hanover County, and we need a calendar that fits us. Not that's brought in at the last minute, and I hate to say sort of forced down the calendar committee when they'd come up with something else totally. And I'd love to be able to get hold of those 2 copies that have mysteriously disappeared. You know how that works in this district? A lot of things mysteriously move around and disappear. So my first request is to listen to the experts. And I would like to call on this young man up here.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Point of order, I'm with you on that. We have to amend the agenda if that's going to, so I would need a motion. No, we will have to have a 2/3 and we will call the roll. I can run the meeting, Ms. Walker, thank you.
Okay, well,
So,
but
sir,
you said experts.
Hand down. Okay.
They're experts. You going to deny that?
Okay, so, Mr. Meg, are you done speaking, Ms. Justice?
I move that we allow the other experts in the audience to also speak, not just our employees, as you
Could you be more
mentioned.
specific in your motion on the other
To
experts
speak
in the
on
audience?
the matter of the calendar, the effect of the calendar will have on their school year.
Ms. Justice, my point was, who are you inviting to speak? And
The experts in the audience that are students.
I need you to say who those are, because we have a lot of people in the room. Would you state your motion, please?
I would like to have the experts, the students, speak on their views on what's going on with our current calendar.
Is there a second?
Yes, I will second.
Okay, any discussion?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Boyer?
First of all, I thank you guys very much for coming. I assume, probably correctly, that you all are dual enrolled or AP students and would like us to change the calendar, and I really do respect your advocacy, and I'm glad that you're here. In terms of the board, I think we really have to be cautious in creating a precedent here where at any one of our special meetings, we're not going to be able to do anything. But how do you deny anybody from coming up and speaking at any meeting? If we allow a special meeting to be changed, That would be my concern. I don't know if Mr. Shive can speak to that. Is he on the line?
I would like to call the question.
I would like to call a point of order and let Mr. Shive weigh in on public commentary at our meetings. This is not a special meeting for that.
I just want to be, well, first of all, public comment wasn't on the notice that went out to the public about what was going to be on the agenda for this meeting. So I don't think that because it's a special called meeting, we didn't have public comment period noticed, then I don't think that we can add that now.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question, please, to Mr.
Yes,
Shive?
Ms. Walker?
Thank you. Mr. Shive, if what was the 3/4 or 5? If
2/3.
If 2/3 of us vote to do something, can we not do that as a board? Isn't that our power as a school board?
Normally, if you're in a regular, one of your regular monthly meetings, you can, by 2/3 vote to amend the agenda to add items that were not publicly noticed. But under the open meetings law, we can only have items on our agenda, or we can only have engage in activities that were noticed to the public. And so since there wasn't public comment noticed, essentially nobody knew that was going to happen. Folks that might have wanted to come, if they knew there was going to be public comment on this, might have wanted to come and talk to the board. But
So
since it
just to
wasn't
follow
noticed,
up, is it against the
they're unaware of
law?
that. Excuse me?
Is it against the law if we decide to do it in a
Under
majority?
the open meetings law requires that you notice to the public the events that will take place in your special call meeting.
So we would be breaking the law if we asked in a board majority to have someone come up and comment?
If you were to have public comment, which was not on your published agenda, that the open meetings law would have required you to have that on there, yes. Now, and if to otherwise just have a free flow of dialogue with your audience participants, that, goes against the way that your board, your meetings operate. And I think you will be setting a precedent that I couldn't advise you for moving forward with dialogue with audience members.
Ms. Justice, did you have something to add?
Yes, I would like to ask Mr. Shive. Mr. Shive, Ms. Craybill said that the experts were the ones that could comment, and it's going to be hard to determine what an expert would be considered, and I know for precedent's sake it could be a problem down the line. But I believe that everybody in this room would admit that they are experts on this subject. And so seeing that that's the case, that's not public comment. It's like if we were to invite somebody in to speak on a topic because they are experts on it. That's not public comment, correct?
Again, I think if you're trying to just engage in dialogue with the audience.
Nope.
And I think it's going to be difficult to not do that in future meetings when there are audience members who want to engage with the board.
Ms. Crable.
Mr. Wilbur?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just thinking of ways we could kind of get both sides. If we were to take maybe a 5-minute recess, and any board member that would like to could engage with the young people that are with us, and then we could come back, and I think we'd be able to hear from the young people, but not officially hear from them and change the thing.
Mr. Shive, can you hear Mr. Wildebohr? You have to get a little closer, Pete.
Sorry.
I heard what Mr. Wildebohr suggested, and there'd be nothing that would prevent the board from taking a recess, and for individual board members to speak with people in the audience. You just need to be sure that you're not, as a board, engaging in public business when the meeting's not in session.
Thank you.
And Mr. Shive, point of clarification, it doesn't really matter what we heard out there because the general public would want to hear that as well. Is that something that we should be concerned about? Because some people will come up here close to so their conversation can. Is somebody got a phone on?
It's outside.
It is, okay.
outside noise.
All right, thank you. So if they didn't come up close to the dais or where there's a microphone hot, then they would be heard. Or if they didn't come up close, then they wouldn't be heard. Is there any reason to worry about that?
I'm not sure exactly what you mean, but if the board is going to be seated at the dais as a board, and receiving feedback on this issue, then the board needs to be in session.
Okay, so we can't do that. And then just to get to your point, Ms. Justice, is these folks are our district employees and attend every meeting. And so they are always invited and they are always able to speak to us. The general population who sits
I'm
out
aware of
here.
this.
I am just explaining it to the people who are watching, the difference between an expert from what we're calling our senior staff, our subject matter experts who advise us, and then the people who are sitting in the audience.
They're also our
Ms.
students.
Justice, do you have something to say?
Well, there also are students who attend school every day, hopefully, so I think that in certain ways their opinions, just in my personal opinion.
So
Yeah,
let's,
that's not.
are we still discussing the motion?
Yes, we are still
Because
discussing.
I'm about ready to call the question.
What could you let, go ahead, Ms. Walker.
I thought we couldn't.
I thought we
can't have a public comment
Right.
period. So what
So
question
so
are we
somebody
calling?
has to rescind the
Oh.
motion, or we have to, what do we do about that, Colin, since we can't?
Still in discussion, right?
We're
Let
still
me
in
just ask-
discussion.
Please,
Oh
please,
my God, do not yell.
The motion's out of
Please.
order.
Do
It
not
doesn't,
yell.
the motion's just out of
Please.
order.
Do not.
the, Mr. Shive, how do we handle this? Do we just kill the motion? Is there a word that we use that say this motion is not a valid motion, or do we have
I
to
have
just?
to rescind
What do
it.
we have to do?
I think Ms. Justice could rescind her motion if
Right.
she so chooses.
Ms.
Otherwise, the
Justice?
board could still vote
Well,
on it.
I have another employee sitting out here that's an expert, then she could possibly come up and convey what she has heard. Would that be all? Convey what she has heard from her students. And I think, is that acceptable, Mr. Shive, for her to speak for the students and she is an employee? As long as there's no repercussion for her that in this, any way, shape, or form in this district?
It would, I think it would be fine for if the board wanted to ask an individual to come and present information about this topic that's been noticed.
Mr. Shive, to that point, it was not on our agenda that we were going to have any presentations, and the only and this is my understanding, so help me out, that members of the audience are not invited to come up and talk. They were not part of the presentation. Only our senior staff was supposed to be here to answer our questions.
I would need to review the meeting notice. I can,
Then, can we just take it, we're going to take a 5-minute break, a recess, so that you can review that for us?
My comment first, I was called on.
Let's miss-
Madam Chair, can I
Hold
make
on,
comment?
Ms. Walker,
I was
I'm
called
talking
on.
to
Just saying.
Mr. Shive. Yes. Do you want us to take a break while you review that, or you want to just have us sit here for a minute?
why don't we take a 5-minute recess?
Okay, so it is 1:50, we'll come back at 1:55.
Just as a reminder, the microphones are on.
Yeah, it doesn't, we
No,
don't
I
have to
know,
be
just
reminded.
making
but-
sure everybody knows.
Yeah. I'll come out there, honey. You're not allowed to be up here. That's right.
Well, they can waive the policy. You know, the federal government and the state government have laws against going into business. What if somebody was to go into business with a publishing company, come back to the Board of Education and say, hey, guess what?
Usually it's the company itself that has a policy that says we would not.
Well,
What I'm trying to say is, like it or not, I don't always like it sometimes. I do.
yeah, I don't have a problem. Can change the policy. But so why pass any policy? I think we should pass it.
Oh, Recess is over. Board members, please take your seats. Okay, so I'm calling the meeting back to order. So where we left off, Mr. Shive, would you please weigh in? Mr. Boyer, could you please come back to the dais? Mr. Shive, would you please advise us on how to proceed with this very unusual request?
So first, I just want to reiterate that.
Can you
because
talk a little bit
public
louder
comment
too? We
was
can't
not-
hear you.
Was not
Loud.
noticed
We
on the
can't hear you.
agenda, that I don't think we should have engaged.
Wait a minute, hold on. Colin, stop a second. Hang on, they're going to adjust the volume so we can hear you.
Let me know when we're ready.
Yeah, we're ready. Go ahead. Thank you.
So I just first want to reiterate that because public comment was not on the agenda, that was noticed to the public, that we can't have, a public discussion about this. If the board wants to hear from the public about this in a meeting, then we can schedule a new meeting to have that. But for purposes of today, that was not noticed. If the board wishes to call on an individual employee of the school system and to receive information from that individual employee in that employee's capacity as an employee, so not as a citizen expressing their own personal views about the matter, but to provide information to the board as an employee of the board, then I think the board could request that.
And does it matter the position that employee holds, like senior staff versus teacher?
I don't think that there's a legal distinction
Okay.
For that purpose.
All right, so Ms. Justice, would you like to rescind your motion?
No. I would like to hear from Ms. Jeffries. She's a guidance counselor.
What is your motion?
We're still in discussion. I would like to hear an expert.
We're changing the motion.
You said that we were allowed to call on experts. I have an expert I am calling on right now. Also, this expert, who's a guidance counselor and works with many thousands of students, actually came up with an appropriate calendar that answers every one of your questions and concerns. And so not only would I like her to speak, well, that's basically what I would like her to speak on, is her calendar, and also express the opinions of the students. Also, I'd like to mention one other thing and ask Mr. Shive a question. Mr. Shive, apparently Ms. Craybill, there were parents and students calling her since we have announced this meeting, and before we announced the meeting, from what I'm hearing, and she told them that they could not come and appear, and we were not informed as a board that we could make that decision to have them speak. Is that appropriate for her to tell in our behalf when we have not even been consoled that students can't speak, or we could have had the notice changed? Is that appropriate for her without our input to be able to just say, no, you cannot speak, just as a chair? Can she do that? Should she have consulted with us before she made that decision?
Mr. Shive, before you answer the question, I am concerned that there are false information coming out of a board member's mouth right now, and that the board chair and the superintendent set the agenda for all meetings, and I did not receive calls from students, and there were emails that many of us got, and I don't even recall. I'll have to go back and look and see if I did that, but nobody called me, and certainly no student called me.
Oh,
So that, I need to clarify that, because a mistruth cannot be tolerated.
Excuse me, how about emails?
Emails are fine.
Okay, so that you requested...
I did not receive any emails from any students asking could they speak.
I said parents.
You
Parents
said
or students? Students or
and
parents?
teachers and parents. You said all
You
of
did
those.
not. You did not receive any emails about that?
No. There was nobody that emailed me, and I don't know who you're looking at out there, is that parents, this was not a meeting for public comment. It was not noticed that way, and I told them this was not a public input hearing. Call to the audience is only required at our regular monthly meetings, even though we do value the opinions of many who want to speak.
You said, I'm taking this off of what you said a few minutes ago before we recessed, that you said that you had gotten that information from parents and students that they wanted to speak. Am I being correct?
I never said that, Ms. Justice. I never said that.
Okay.
So now, Mr. Shive, would you want to weigh in on her question, not about my actions, but on the other question? And I think you did.
I'm not really sure where we are right now.
I'm
to be
not
frank
sure where
with
we
you.
are either. We need to make a different motion than allowing a stakeholder expert from the audience to speak. She needs to invite a specific school system employee. Is that what we're talking about? An AIG teacher and not a counselor?
No, I invited the counselor. I already named her name, Miss Angela Jeffries, I believe.
She's an AIG teacher. I
Well,
believe, and not a
AIG teacher's counselor.
Let's just be clear on our terminology to make sure we got it right.
That's fine. I would like her to come up and speak since she works with the students. And since the students are not allowed to speak, at least this will give them a voice professionally, for input of what they're experiencing, and also to speak on the calendar that has been created by a number of people that are very concerned, that has answered every question that and concern that everybody up here has come up with, from the vacations, to the work days, to the training for letters, you name it, it's solved. It can be done.
Ms. Justice, could
So
I just get you to please indulge me and give me your motion succinctly so we can capture that in our minutes? What is your motion?
Well, motion, I just asked if she could come up and speak as an expert. You told us.
We have to
I'm not
agree to that.
changing. I'm not changing. You said that an expert could come up. He said she's an expert, one of our employees, so I'm asking her to come up and speak.
Mr. Shive,
If
tell
Ms.
us the
Justice,
procedure.
if that's her motion, then if someone will second it, then the board can vote on that.
And we have to have a motion to invite someone from the audience, correct?
She's an
I
employee.
would advise that if you're going to recognize that employee to speak, as, in her capacity as an employee, that someone make a motion to do so, and that be seconded and the board vote on it.
Your motion, Judy.
Okay, so I move that Ms. Angela Jeffries, an employee who works with many thousands of students in our school district, come up and speak as an expert on the situation involving the calendar.
Is there a second?
There's a second.
Okay, Stephanie Walker. Any more discussion on that? Mr. Bullier, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And that's fine. I just do want to point out, I do feel like this is I don't know if anybody can speak to this, but I do feel like that's an equity issue. The 1%, the top students are driving this conversation. And there was no opportunity for our on-level students to come up here and speak. That wasn't noticed. I just feel like that might be an equity issue. I don't know if our equity director can speak to that, but that's how I feel.
Any more discussion? Ms. Walker?
I just want to point out that there are students here that took the time out to come here, and I think if they do well, I think everyone's going to do well. And so I just want to counter that kind of a notion that it's an equity issue. I think the students here now that want to speak that aren't being allowed to speak, even though we want student voices, and the fact that we are older and we are not in the classrooms like they are, I think they are the experts. But in lieu of that, since we can't do that, then I think a representative that knows the best needs to be able to speak.
And I just really would like to go on record saying that we value the student voice and we value the voice of Ms. Jeffries, who could possibly be coming up to speak. But we also value following our own rules, and the rules are that we don't usually invite people up out of in a non-meeting where they're allowed and where it's not noticed. So I just want folks to know that I am duly aware of trying to encourage our board to follow our own rules. And I would like to say that Ms. Jeffrey is very aware of what those rules are and could easily have done something differently than invite all of our students and make us look bad.
I'll call the question.
To make us look bad.
Second.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Billy, will you please call the roll? No, they called the question. We have to go. They called it, and they both did, so we have to do it. Ms. Billy, will you call the roll?
Hold it.
For some reason, I'm rescinding that call.
Then I'm going to finish my conversation then.
Oh, great.
So the students who are who were invited by their teacher, the teacher, I feel like, is putting us in a very hard spot to put us in,
Point of order. Point of order, point of order. Point of order.
Call the question then. Okay,
I'm having
Mr.
called Mr.
McManus,
McManus
Mr.
wanted to say
McManus.
something.
We're not playing well together. If Ms. Justice was kind enough to rescind her motion, I'd like to make a motion to discuss and to vote on immediately. I would like for us to take what information we have, and I'd like to give it to the present 23-24 calendar committee and ask them to look at that and make a recommendation, and the board will agree to do what that calendar committee recommends. Because we're attacking each other, I've gotten involved, we don't need this, we're going backwards. It's not their fault. That's my recommendation. I'd like to discuss it immediately.
So if
I would
we-
like to second that.
Okay, so hold on 1 second. We're getting motioned ahead of ourselves.
Yeah,
So
we've
we
got-
need to
we've got
get out of this, and
motions
so
on
Ms.
top of
Justice
motions.
needs to,
So
we either have to vote on her motion.
We need to first deal with the motion that was.
Yes, we have to vote on her motion, and then we can come to your motion, Mr. McManus.
Unless Ms. Justice is willing to withdraw her motion.
I want to do what's best for the students. I want to do my job. I'm not putting it off until next year. The problem's immediate, so I would like to go ahead and, my motion to have Ms. Jeffries, who's done a lot of work and got a calendar that answers.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor,
Everybody's-
seconded by Ms. Walker. Ms. Bowie, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Justice?
Yes.
Mr. McManus?
No.
Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Craybill?
No.
Mr. Wildebohr?
Aye.
And Mr. Boyer?
No.
Okay, so that's 3-3. That motion does not pass. Mr. McManus?
Sorry, guys.
I'd like, if you want discussion, I'd like to take this and give it to the 23-24 calendar committee, and we will abide by what they feel. They are the closest to all the staff, central office staff. We're not going to make this, we just at a point where it's embarrassing.
Mr. McManus, are you making a motion, or you just want us to talk?
He's
I think I
discussion.
did.
He made a
No,
motion, I
You
second
need to
it.
make the motion.
To it.
Okay, so you're making that motion? Okay, so
And I
you made the motion,
See, now I'm
and
eating
second?
that.
I seconded
Okay.
it. And if I could
Alright.
speak to that, I think the one thing that we
Hold
do.
on. So you seconded, any discussion?
I'm trying to do that.
So now, Mr. Wildebohr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the one thing that we look at with the calendar committee is the fact that they have teachers on the committee, they have administrators on the committee, I guess they have 2 board members on the committee, and as it was presented to me, that's their job. I mean, I think that might be a great place to house this. They have the expertise at that level that they can make a sound judgment for the, and this is not a easy question either way. I've got a moment to speak to the young people here, and I think it's very important that we listen to the young people and to the teachers, and that's why I went to schools to do that. So, but I think it is a sound move, so.
Ms. Walker?
So I would feel good about that, except I saw what happened last year at the calendar committee, and I saw the fact that they did, at the 3rd meeting out of 4, decide they were going to go with the December deadline, and all of a sudden, there was a new calendar popped up. And I don't know how in the world that got put there. I don't know what discussion was had over it. And if I felt like I could trust the process, I would say, yes, that's a great thing to do. But there's not students on that calendar committee, are there, or
Yes,
not?
there are.
Are there enough of them? Are they allowed to publicly comment and contribute to the conversation? Because I feel like we have them here and we're not listening to them. And I worry about the process. And I'm not being personal about it. This is, for me, never about anybody's personal, feelings. It's about what's best for students. I will always say that. And so if you guys are asking to do that, I'm worried about the process and what's going to get involved and who's going to get involved to try and dissuade it and put pressure. And I don't like the excoriating of staff members here. I think that's a bad thing to do.
Ms. Dr. Faison, could you address her question about our students on our calendar committee for 23-24?
Actually, can I?
You've already.
I was hoping you'd just give us the full, who's on the committee, so we would know. Would you mind? I'm sorry. I apologize for jumping in.
Okay.
Made sense.
Okay. So the last year's calendar committee consisted of Well, I'll tell you, last year's calendar committee consisted of principals, all of our specialty principals, a principal at every level. We have students. I actually think we have one student, it might be two, but they did not show up. I will tell you, they were not present at our last calendar committee. This year, because we were talking about a 23-24 calendar committee, we actually added teachers and principals at the high school level, more at the high school level, because normally we had about 3 parents at the previous, and I'm talking, I wasn't on the last year's committee, but we had 3 parents from the previous committee. This year what we did was we asked for a parent at every traditional high school to be present, because it is such an issue about high school in this. We also asked for additional parents at every other grade level. So we have a parent representative at every grade level at every traditional high school. We also have, like I said, some students. We have senior staff, we have principals, and we also increased our number of teachers. So we also asked for a teacher at every high school and an additional teacher at the different levels. So we increased our numbers of teachers and principals for this year's committee, and the increase mainly came at the high school level.
Thank you. Ms. Justice had her hand up?
Well, actually, Mr. Wilderboro was supposed to speak.
He's already spoken once, and we're going to go around. Everybody gets a chance to go.
You told him he would before.
Madam Chair, just
Excuse
a quick
me.
point. I think we lost the signal. That's why I was just trying to give you the streaming signal. I just got a word, we've lost the signal.
Thank you, Mr. Wilderboro.
That's all I was going to say.
Thank you, Mr. Wilderboro. Very practical. Are we working now, or?
I think we're checking.
Hang on,
Check.
please.
You good?
No issues? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so next is Ms. Justice.
Okay, I watched that calendar committee this year. I have been on many committees. There's no such thing as working over 30 people on a committee. I looked at the policy. The policy does not state you have all those people on there. If you actually want to work as individuals and together, you don't. I watched, it was a presentation by central office about what we need to do. Then everybody got together and did different things. But there was no discussion from anybody else, and there's going to be 2 or 3 more meetings. That's going to happen next year, okay? The fact is, that's not what we're talking about. And I'm so glad that you guys want it solved that way, that you think we're not playing well. Well, you know what? We were elected by the public, and so this is what you're going to get when you have people doing things that are the voice of the public or for their own, I'm not sure what agendas are, but this, it does look messy sometimes, and I'm so sad. I really am. My focus is on what's good for the kids. I said this the last meeting, and I'm saying it now. We made a mistake, it appears. Everybody has been saying we made a mistake, except maybe 1 person or 2 people up here. And I was talking to the kids earlier. I was a teacher for many years. I'm a mother, a grandmother, I'm a friend. I've been a professional in other fields. When you make mistakes, that's part of life. That's how you learn. The problem is if you make a mistake, and you don't have the ability to correct that mistake, then that mistake continues. You didn't learn, and you compound the problem. We made a mistake. It was a bad night. We admit it. People thought they trusted us. They didn't really look at the calendar closely until school started. That's why this issue came up at the beginning of August. We should have had a meeting before school started. That was another mistake, but that wasn't a mistake on, we had a majority that wanted a meeting. It was blocked. I keep trying, and there's other people up here, and I know everybody, there's literally thousands of people that are affected by this. We keep trying to do the right thing and to correct the mistake. To say that we're not playing nice, to say we can do it next year, that's fine, you can say it, but we need to do it now. If we made a mistake, then we need to fix it. And one of the ways to fix it is to look at what's been offered. I have not even heard 1 word from anybody that's looked at this calendar that people behind the professionals in the schools have been working on to try to answer all your concerns, and they have been answered. We haven't had 1 person up here that said that they have looked at it. I know that Ms. Walker did, she brought it in. I've had people shooting bits and pieces to it for days because they've been working hard. This is what we need to be discussing, not putting it off until next year. That's why we met. Once more, there's a lot of time that's going around and around in circles. Look at the facts. Look what's important. The calendar, we made a mistake. We should look at ways to correct it. We've got ways to correct it, and instead, we're getting resistance from people that refuse to even look at solutions to problems. Kids, when you make mistakes, if you find solutions, implement them, okay? Keep being brave and keep being strong, and thank you for being here.
Ms. Walker, would you like
Gosh, I lost my train of thought, but I'm going to just say this. I think if the process was trusted, I would feel very good about doing that.
Trust the process.
I'm worried that it won't, the problems won't be fixed because there's obvious issues with this calendar when it comes to a good population of our students. And, you know, they're such hardworking kids, and they try and put everything that they can do before they get ready to go off to college, and we have to support them. And I feel like this is the way we do it, by looking at what makes it easier and better for them. And I have talked to people about this calendar that feels like there can be adjustments made, and it's not going to change a great deal of the dates. I mean, and we can figure it out. We have the powers of school board to do that, and, you know, the law says we can if we need to, and I think we should if we have to.
Mr. McManus?
I apologize, Ms. Johnson. I meant for this information to go to the present next year's calendar committee. Because they have the association in their schools with staff and with students and with administrators. And then let them decide what they think will work best.
For next year.
For this year.
And what we're trying to decide, that would go to that kind of
Well-
committee be asked to look at this year and as well as next year. And I'm on the committee.
I wasn't clear about
I'm
that.
on the committee. I'll assure you, it's what the recommendations are. I will know what they are.
Well, my concern is that committee is very
That is
cumbersome.
you.
Yeah, it's very cumbersome. It was not, I put together too many committees to know one that's cumbersome and one that's being directed by the people putting it together. If we really want input, we need to have a more focused committee that's actually not a hodgepodge of so many people, and that you can't get any individual input on a very effective scale. So thank you. I did not understand what you were saying. I thought what you said was that to do it next year. I would, if I trusted that body as it is made up right now, and after what happened last year, it'd be a different matter. It's not that I don't trust the people on it, I just don't trust and it's not even what's said in the policy as far as its formation, or its, you know, the people on it itself. So, you know, if we're gonna, we need to do this now. Is this what you're talking about sending to that committee?
Anything we've said, everything we've said, all the input.
Okay, well, my concern.
They can be.
Yeah, and also, I watched the last committee, it was all directed from central office, and there was little input, if any, from anybody. I watched it, and this is not, I don't want to be beaten on this right now. I think that we're here now. Maybe we should reconvene after we get a chance to look at this. Maybe that's the biggest problem, is the 7 of us need to look at this. You think you'd rather have the calendar committee do it? Is that what you're saying?
Can I interject?
Go right ahead.
The calendar committee, I mean, the calendar policy that is a part of 2230 board committees. This is what our policy says, is that it's a board advisory committee. The purpose of the committee is to create the school system's calendars. The committee solicits input from staff, parents, and the community based on the information gathered, and we are making sure that the wording got changed to add students in there. Based on the information gathered and state calendar guidelines, the committee generates draft calendars to present to the board for approval. The committee must have a representative from each of the following groups: the board, the senior leadership, teachers, parents, and a principal from each school level. And we will be coming forward from the calendar, from the policy committee, that we have officially added the word students in there. Mr. Boyer?
So that's the one.
Hold on, Mr. Boyer.
But that's the one's in process of being
No,
created.
this is what our policy is right here, right now.
It says now one person here, one person there, and that's not what's on this
It says from
committee.
each grade level.
Okay.
So what she described is perfectly within our calendar.
It doesn't say have 5 people from central
It
office.
says representatives, plural, so that can be whatever. Mr. Boyer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, just briefly, I don't understand where that's coming from, the don't trust the process, because if you go on the NHCS YouTube page, you can see we do come back for a third meeting, which is unusual. We don't usually have 3, we usually have 2. And the reason we came back for the third one is clearly explained by the committee chair, Dr. Smith, at 17 minutes and 30 seconds. I mean, if you'd like, it's 5 minutes. We can cue it up right now. I know they have it. But it's there, and it says that we came back because we realized that we weren't doing what was in the best interest of all our students. And there was a question by the high school representative principal saying, hey, wait a minute, I have all these problems. And we talked about how we were going to fix them, and we walked through it, and we still talked about the need for that change. And at the end, it was a unanimous approval. It's right there. And I don't agree that we made a mistake, because over half of the counties in the state of North Carolina, there's 115 LEAs. Over half of them have this exact same calendar, so there's not some epic failure. But we are the only one, if you're curious, who are up here after we pass the calendar debating whether or not we should keep it. So there's 1 out of 115.
Okay, so there is a motion on the table.
Ms. Walker.
Did you need to speak?
Well, can I just reply to that, and not in a personal way, but I looked at the meeting notes from last year's calendar committee meeting, and it clearly says on the third meeting that the committee voted to end the semester at the end of December. 3 weeks later, that was completely changed. I can't find any of the drafts of the calendar, so I don't know what happened in between that date and the last date that completely changed the calendar. So if you vote as a committee to do one thing and then all of a sudden it's changed, I don't know where that order came from. If that was the board chair, which was Mr. Boyer at the time, or somebody other than that.
I was not the committee chair, I was the
And so
liaison.
It says online.
Our policy,
It says he's the chairperson online.
he is the chair from us. He is the representative from us.
Right. I know.
But that, he's our representative. Our policy states that the subject matter expert is the chair.
Well, who changed the calendar? I guess that's what I want to know.
I would encourage you, and again, if you'd like to know right now, we can go to 17 minutes and 30 seconds, and you can watch the 7 or 8 minute explanation.
Did you send me the drafts? Because I can't find any copies of them.
If you go to YouTube, you can watch the meeting in its entirety. It's 48 minutes long.
I want the drafts.
And it also should be online and simply.
The drafts of the other calendars?
Calendars.
I don't
All
know
right,
what they
so
are.
I'd like to call the question. Mr. McManus's motion was to send all of this information to the 23-24 calendar committee for discussion in next year's calendar.
No, this year's. He clarified
Did you say that for this year's calendar? You didn't say.
I want them to take from us what we have and for them to make the decision or recommendation.
Okay, so send all of this information to the current calendar committee to make a decision, to give us a calendar to present for us to vote on for this school year, 22-23. Is that what you're saying?
Whatever decision they come up with.
No, I'm getting clarification. So you want this information to go to the calendar committee that you are on now and that Dr. Faison is chairing, and you want them to decide if we are going to, no, you want them to present a calendar back to us for this school year.
That decision.
They may recommend that we do nothing and leave it as it is. They may recommend we change one day. I don't
Right,
know,
okay.
but I trust them.
But that's what you're saying, okay.
So take it all back to the
Yes,
committee.
yes, okay. All right, so,
Do we want to further say when, because I don't know when their next meeting is, but.
We don't have time for all this. We don't have time. We should have done this in
Well, we got
August.
time, because if we change it, we're still gonna have a couple of weeks before, 3 weeks before people start implementing stuff.
Teachers need to know now.
Another point of
Well-
clarification, we have teacher workdays coming up on the 26th.
and also
have
too,
time.
just so you'll know, the 23rd is the end of the
can do it
the
today.
4 weeks grading period. So we're already significantly in. Okay, so the motion is to take all of this discussion to the calendar committee, and they will come back to us with a recommendation.
That's it.
Okay, all right, so Ms. Bowie, will you please call the roll?
Madam Chair, point of clarification, because I never got my question answered. Do we want to set a time for that?
No, we're going to do one at a time. I mean,
Do we want to, but I'm asking Mr. McManus if he wants to amend his.
Well, I think the next meeting is 26th.
It's the
I don't know.
19th of
We don't have
October.
time.
Dr. Faison, would you please weigh in for us?
Next meeting is is October the 19th, but we would have
Then
to,
then I'll
the
have
next,
to
October the
prepare for me.
19th, but for
It's
the
too late.
23-24 calendar. So, clearly, we couldn't wait that long. I have to ask this question. Ms. Justice, I know you think there are too many, I understand there's too many people on the
It's over
board, so
30 of
I
us.
need clarity on the committee. I would need clarity on who to remove from the committee, because what I've done is, I've gone by the board policy, and I added additional parents and teachers. If I need to remove someone, I would need this body to guide me on who to remove.
Well, this is not the
Hang on, excuse me.
discussion.
Ms. Justice, did you need to respond?
Well, right now, we got to focus on this.
I mean, we're getting off of what we need to do. We brought the calendar into ordinance. We answered all of their questions. And I know that Hugh, and it sounds like Pete too, are trying to do the right thing about moving it to the calendar committee. We don't have time for all this.
Yes, we do.
We were supposed to, July 19th
Yeah.
of October.
We can direct the calendar committee to meet.
This is almost exactly what some people want to keep putting things down the road so it wouldn't work, which is why we asked in August to have this meeting so this wouldn't be going on. This
Okay,
is sad.
so,
It's not functioning anymore.
Let's,
It's not.
so Mr. McManus, did you want to put a date timeline on this? Because I wanted to ask Dr. Faison how fast she thinks she can do it.
Fast as you need it.
Huh?
We can do it. Let's say the 30th. Can we call them all back in by the 30th?
Yes, but I would need to know who to remove from the committee. I do need this
That's not
body
in
to
my-
guide me.
That's not in the motion. Don't
Okay,
worry about
sorry,
that.
okay.
Okay, so we want to add this
Reconvene the
by
meeting on the 30th.
September 30th.
Yes.
Madam Chair,
So, and, okay. Yes, I'm
just a
calling the
clarifying question.
Yes.
This new body has not even looked at 20, 21, 22 or considered it. Do we want this new body to consider it, or do we want to bring back the old committee?
No, we're
She
not.
can send it out. She will make sure that she sends this out by Monday to the committee, and they'll start
So,
discussing.
Committee.
so we have to wait until at least September 30th, so till October,
Okay.
until we can decide this, right? Is that what I'm
That's what
understanding?
Mr.
October
McManus's
7th.
motion is, by
Okay.
September 30th. Okay. Ms. Billy, will you please call the roll? Sorry.
Ms. Justice?
No.
Mr. McManus?
Yes.
Ms. Walker?
No.
Ms. Craybill?
Yes.
Mr. Wildebohr?
Aye.
And Mr. Boyer?
Yes.
Okay, so that passes 4-2. So what we have resolved from this is that all of this information, the calendar committee will reconvene under its current membership that we have, and you will have something prepared for us by September the 30th. Okay? So that is the end of our, yes.
Question not totally related to what we just approved, but in it, if I may ask Dr. Faison a question. Dr. Faison, there was a question that I was asked by several elementary staff members about the letter training for the benefit of everybody and the calendar committee. If we had to lose those days, what happens?
So currently, we're in cohort 1. So we had the choice of selecting the days that we needed for letters, and of course, we chose all of the teacher work days chose teacher work days to do it. So if we were to change our letters training, to change our teacher work days, which normally they follow a grading period, that's why we're thinking they would be changed, because the teachers need a grading period to do the work days. If we were to change them, we have 850 teachers that are involved, and per day, and right now the state pays for it, but that would make the cost come to us, and it would be $127,500 per day. It is 4 sessions that they're doing, so there's 4 work days that we have lined up for this. So it would be a total of $510,000. That, not only is the money concern for letters, as you know, it's a state mandated. There's no choice. But it also, if we did not do it on a work day and we did it on a school day, where would we get the subs? And the last thing, if we did it after school, because we looked at that too, because it's the board's decision. So we have to do it after school. The teachers would do it from 4 to 7 or either on Saturday. We would then, the state requires that you pay a stipend of $165 if they do that. So then our costs would go to $140,000 and $250 a session for a total of $561,000 for the complete training. And I just want to reiterate, because I know the work days, and while we changed the work days, if we did not change the work days, work days are based on when the semester, the grading period ends. It is not fair for our teachers not to have that time to do that. So if you change the grading period, when it ends, teachers have to have that time to do the work days. That is what is normal practice. That is what is fair for our teachers.
And all that would be shared with the calendar committee.
This with this.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so, Ms. Justice?
I'm asking her a question. Wasn't, last year, if I remember right, it was guaranteed that the company that was doing the letters training would provide us with subs and pay for them? Well, we provide the subs, but they pay for them, correct?
The state does do that. They
Okay,
do that
well,
currently
that's,
now.
okay.
The state pays for it, Ms. Justice. So currently, but the state pays for it, but we don't have, the training, our issue would be, if we had to take the money, right, the $560,000, that's state money, right? So right now, we're using that money for consumables. We're using that money for materials in the schools and literacy. So, and if we take it and use it to pay teachers and subs for that, that it will be taken out of our literacy and the things that we do for our foundations and that at that level.
The state made the statement they would pay for the subs for the training, correct? Correct?
Yes, they.
And if you have subs, you don't need a work day, correct? You have teachers
I'm not
working,
explaining it correctly.
you have teachers on the training, and then you have subs in the classrooms covering, correct?
So maybe I'm not explaining it correctly. The state has given us a certain pot of money, 085, okay? So with that money, we are using that money. We found work days, so we don't have to use all of that money to pay for subs. If we don't, it's the same money, the state has it here. If we don't, we will then have to use that money to pay for subs, and we will not be able to use that money the way we have intended to make sure that our students have consumables with the foundations, buying some literacy materials, and the bonuses that our teachers receive for the summer camp. So the state gives us the money. Right now, we figured out a way that we don't have to spend $560,000 to do it. We can use that money to pay our teachers their bonuses, buy consumables, but we could, if we had to take the money, it would take our whole budget the state has given us, the $560,000.
Okay, this is the first I've heard of this, but I did hear about the state paying for the subs because our teachers are overburdened and overworked. So obviously, we're using the pot that was used for the subs so the teachers wouldn't have to be doing work days, and we're using it on other things, which is fine, except for the fact it would be good. There was a reason they gave it to the teachers for the subs.
They didn't give it, it wasn't directly for subs.
But I mean, that was the intent.
This money is allotted for our literacy plan. And the letters is part of our literacy plan. So we are using it to support our teachers in the classroom mainly now. But if we had to do this, it would take, we figured it up, 90% of our budget, and we would have an issue with paying our bonuses.
But that was the original intent, was to pay for the subs, for the teachers to be able to train during the school year and not have to do it all on their work days. Was that not correct? That's what I was informed of when this money was first mentioned and brought up to the public from the legislature.
I can only tell you that most people are doing what we're doing across our state, is using work days and using this money to help the teachers with literacy and give their bonuses for summer. It is part of the literacy plan, and a part of the literacy plan is letters, so you do have some wiggle room. That's just how it's been
Okay, well, I'm very disappointed in the fact that the teachers seem to be taking once more the branch, when there should, funding should be coming, I'm not blaming you, but from the state and from the local pots, which has got the money.
Okay, so Ms. Justice, can I leave?
Thank you for that information.
Ms. Walker?
I was curious, the letters training happened last year as well, right? And
Exactly.
weren't there date changes to that had
It
to
was
be made?
Yes, And that, in letters last year and remember, I came on in March, but letters last year was a struggle to get our teachers all trained because we don't have a choice. Letters is not something we can choose. It is a legislator mandate. So we had to. So what we did is like the curriculum team explained it to me, it's like we had the first draft. We are cohort 1. So we could not had to pull our teachers out and allow them to get this done during the work days and then actually provide with additional supplements and things like that because we don't have to pour them. Because you're talking 850 staff members.
Well, I was just clarifying because I had heard that some of the training days had to be changed, and I don't really know what the implications were for that, but I guess sometimes things do happen, and if that were the case, are you saying they penalized the district?
No, what I'm saying is, so we have a pot of money.
Yeah.
Okay? So we don't have to hire subs. So, okay, state gives us a pot of money. Let's say they give us $800,000. I can't remember exactly the number. We could hire a sub to do our literacy. We said, let's train our teachers like on work days. So that saves us $510,000. So instead of using that $510,000 to hire subs, we now, I'm sure you've seen the foundations and the consumables, the way the kids can actually manipulate the letters and things like that. We now can purchase more things so our students can have enhanced literacy in their classrooms. So the money's still there. We just used the money. We were smart, and used it with the work days. And this would change the way we have to use the money. It would take that budget, and then we would have to come back to this body or somebody and ask for additional money at the end for our bonuses for our teachers that are mandated for the state, because we also cover our bonuses and would not have enough for that.
Mr. Boyer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Given that new information and given the fact that we would not be able to change the calendar, you're talking about pacing, it's going to be 3 weeks worse. I would propose a new motion to send this to the calendar committee, maintain this current calendar for the school year to give our administrators, our staff, our teachers, our students some sort of certainty rather than leaving them hanging for 3 weeks, and have us address it for the 2023-2024 school year. So my motion would be to maintain this calendar and put this new information forward for 23-24. And again, I would reiterate, this is not a unique calendar by any means. This meeting is unique.
So can I just ask a question of Mr. Shive? So, sure. Mr. Shive, we just voted to have the calendar committee bring us a recommendation. And so now we have a second motion that is counter to that. Is that allowed? It's like we just made a second motion that contradicted.
I think you could say, the first motion was to refer the matter to the calendar committee for a recommendation for this school year. And I guess I'm just thinking through, I think Mr. Boyer's motion inherently does kind of ask to rescind that prior action. Maybe another way to do it would be to provide, to ask, to send this to the calendar committee. Are you wanting Mr. Boyer, are you wanting the calendar committee to make any recommendation for this school year, or to just completely keep it the same?
Yeah, he does.
I guess maybe my motion would be to rescind the prior action.
Okay.
I think we need some stability. I can't imagine being a principal and being told, hey, I know you thought you had till X, but now, get it into gear, let's go. I could not imagine the pressure and the stress that's going to put on our teachers and our students and administrators. So I would vote to rescind.
So you're making a motion to rescind. Is he allowed to do that?
It would need to be a motion to reconsider.
Okay, motion to reconsider.
Okay, so, okay. Keep going.
And then, it would need to be seconded.
Okay, so is there a second to a motion to reconsider the motion we just voted on. Is there a second to that? I'll second that. All right, so is there any discussion? Mr. Wildebohr, you had your hand up for a while?
Yeah, about another topic, but we jumped topics. First off, I want to say once again that, and I think we do that a lot, but, it's all about educating students. I want to talk about what Dr. Faison had said, and that was the conversation we were having prior to this new motion, and that was, about literacy. And literacy is so, so important. If we don't build those foundations, I think that the wise use of our funds, we only have a certain amount of funds to support literacy in the classroom, is exceptional. So that's what I was going to say before this most recent motion came up.
Okay, Mr. McManus?
Basically, you had a pot of money. We made the decision to apply it to the results of the pandemic plus. We had some budget issues, so it was even more needy. And you had work days to complete this. And my notes I found them. It's an 8-hour day. And I think, 20 are online? 20 are online. Part of, some people get to do online.
Letters.
The training.
Okay.
You're talking about the training.
This year, the training.
Yeah, it's training.
The training will be face-to-face this year.
It's the second year, so last year was the first year. So we really have to complete it this year.
Yeah.
And the work days were placed. I'm sorry, but I just feel comfortable with the calendar committee. They're going to handle this to the best of everyone's. I just have to believe that.
Okay, Ms. Justice?
Okay, we could keep doing this all afternoon. Let's keep revisiting. Let's keep revisiting it. Dr. Faison was very enlightening, and thank you for that information. We do have a budget problem, but this is not the time we're going to be talking about that. One of the things that the calendar committee will do, we'll be looking at this new calendar that we're presenting for this year, that will actually have those work days for those teachers so they can do the letters training. So that's the reason we were sending it to the calendar committee. I don't know for sure why Mr.
Bollier. Thank you.
Tied it in the way that he did, but he did, and as I said, we could keep revoting this all afternoon. Somebody else could bring up another one. I think, we just need to cut this off. Go ahead and just vote on this and just get it to the calendar committee. That's my take on it. That's the best place for it.
Thank you, Ms. Justice. So if we went with changing the dates, then we would have to get 800 subs all in the same day? Is that what we're talking about?
Ms. Craybill,
What?
Stop.
just to be clear, right now, Mr. Boyer's motion to reconsider is what's on the
Right,
table.
I know, it's part of the discussion,
And
because that's
if
what,
that passes, if the motion to reconsider passes, then there'd have to be a different motion to.
okay, all right. So, Ms. Billy, will you please call the roll? The motion is to rescind Mr. McManus's,
Reconsider.
to reconsider, I'm sorry, let me write that down. Reconsider. Okay, Ms. Billy?
Ms. Justice?
No.
Mr. McManus?
No.
Ms. Walker?
No.
Ms. Craybill?
Yes.
Mr. Wildebohr?
No.
And Mr. Bollier?
Yes.
Okay, so that did not pass, 2-4.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, I have another question that it relates to that. So and calendar folks help me, if we vote to change the traditional calendar, do we have to also look at any of the other 8 calendars that we have? Because they do tie together. So are we going to have to do that as well?
We do not have to. It would be I would think it would be up to the board. Transportation, Eddie, I don't know.
I'm thinking pre-K calendar
pre-K calendar.
is definitely tied to our traditional
Pre-K calendar would be tied to this calendar, year-round,
You can't
and
mess with
restart.
year-round.
Go ahead,
Year-round
Dr.
has already been approved by the state.
Yeah.
And we were dinged on that when they sent it back to us, and and the board had to revote on it.
So other than pre-K, are there any other of the calendars, like the restart or the pre-K restart at Freeman, or any of the early college high schools?
No, I don't.
Okay, so just those 2 calendars. So we really are looking at 2 calendars. And then just to be clear, is that you are going to have a meeting by September the 20th, not have something back to us by September the 20th.
20th or 30th?
I'm sorry, September the 30th. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that. Okay, so there's a motion on the table to adjourn. Is there a second? Okay, then we are adjourned.
What? Aren't we supposed to say vote? I mean, I don't mind
Oh, I'm sorry,
adjourning.
yes, you're right, we have to vote. Please call the roll. I thought I could do it with just, is there any opposition to adjourning? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're adjourned.
Oh, I do.
Now, with her up there directing everything, I watched that meeting. All she did was do all the directing, and everybody went along with it. Well, that's what happened with
So am I this year.
they got like 5 or 6 people from central office on it. All it says is 1. All it says is it requires 1 on there. Well, it's got to be fair and right. And these people, nobody's got to look at this thing. It's great. It answers all the questions.
They were short.
But see, that's,
They'll look at it. They'll look at the hours. They'll look at everything.
put down what you saw, and that's what we need to do. I mean, we just need to work it out. It's not like, well, there's 3 versions, it's not just one. So,
I think what upset everybody was the reflection from the sun. You can't get that one on your head.
no, his head, that's because when he was in the convertible fluid, I could see.
That's not what policy said. You know what I'm saying?
Well, these are super.